Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. There are those who have heard these kinds of channels many times, and we welcome them. And then there are the first-timers who have not. There's always the first-timers. And we say to them, isn't it interesting? You have the same voice, the same intellect, the same human who a moment ago actually stepped away. How is this process possible? And I will tell you, it is that which you have perceived which gets you literally into trouble cognizing this or believing it because you've expected something else. We've said many times that over the years, the eons, channeling is the way Spirit talks to you. Let me take you back hundreds of years, even where you sit today. And there is a group who is meeting. You might call them the indigenous, the originals, the first Americans. And if you look at what they do, of how they treat that which is Mother Nature, God, Spirit, whatever you say, the first thing they do is they honor their ancestors. And in honoring their ancestors, you may not understand, they are honoring themselves because they see themselves as a product of their ancestors. They may even have the concept of past lives, and they are their own ancestors. And an elder, the one who is assigned as the one who is the oldest and the wisest, after a certain amount of time or a certain amount of singing or dancing, would actually have a statement or a message or perhaps a prophecy. And it all is channeled. That is how it works. And that is always how it has worked. The acknowledgement that the elder was the one who had the ability to lead the others is not that uncommon. If you go back further and on another continent, thousands of years before that, they were simply doing it the same, except the gender was switched. Now I take you to Australia. And it was all women. And the idea of this is they are the life givers. They are the ones with the intuition. They are the ones who raise humanity and children. What better to have the shamanship and the channeling that humanity with them needed. And so what you see in the chair is only strange because your society says it is. Now, I'm speaking long enough so far for you to get used to this. And I'm going to ask you, are you starting to feel that the energy is different? This is not the man who stood before you. The subject today is what it always is. The magnificence of the human being. In this new energy is startling. What is starting to happen in society will take generations. But what we want to tell you is what we have said before. There is precedent here. This has happened before in other places. And so when you hear the channeling of expectations of the prophecy, perhaps, of where it's going and what's going to happen and what is going on at this moment, it is a reflection of what has happened before. And in that there should be some solace. What happens with change? What happens when things start to get better? There's often upheaval. There's often a retranscription of reality where you have to get adjusted to something that literally was not there before. If new things are presented to the psyche of the human being, the first reaction is fear. A new reality is not comfortable until it is absorbed, until it is tried, until it's comfortable. And what is going on, not necessarily just in this room, but within old souls and humanity in general, is the upheaval of change. The thing that you are starting to see the most is what I will call the exposure of the white hats and black hats. No more fence sitting is what we have told you is upon this planet. And the darkness is starting to show clearly. Whereas before it was muddled in the soup of grayness, you might say, of your very existence. You might have lived for 20, 30, 40 years on this planet and been part of major conspiracies, of Illuminatis, of control, and never really truly understood it because it was in the grayness under the hood. And now it's not. And suddenly you start to see it and you react. And what that's going to do, ladies and gentlemen, is it's going to create choice that you never had before. And that choice overwhelmingly, we've seen it, is going to be for the light. Integrity and transparency. And it starts with upheaval. It starts with things that don't make sense. It starts with a dark army that cuts people's heads off and wants to create horror and sorrow and darkness everywhere. Not a country-based army, but one that has no borders at all. First time, a dark army without borders, without a common language. We've said that over and over and over so that you'll see it as unique to your time and right on schedule. The knee-jerk reaction to the dark over light is that they must survive at any cost, and they're going to climb out of the woodwork. You're going to see it everywhere. It's going to come in many disguises, outrageousness, change, and it's already among those here know it. And it's in everyday life. You're going to see light workers that are having to make decisions. You can no longer, we talked about this last time, you can no longer subscribe to these kinds of energies and then go out of the room and live differently. That is a paradigm that you have gotten used to, dear ones. And the paradigm says that you go to worship and you dress for it and you sing songs and you kneel. And then you go home and you get in your regular clothes and you're somebody else. And you do that for year after year and you call it acceptable, never understanding it's not even real. And now it gets real. What do you believe? Do you carry it into your life? When you wake up in the morning, what is the first thing you think? There are those who will put their feet on the ground and say, here it is, another wretched day. And it will be. Created from their mouths, their consciousness, and they will walk from place to place, and everything will go wrong. And they'll cry throughout the day because everything is wrong. Never understanding that their consciousness precedes them. And then there are those who will put their feet on the ground and smile and chuckle and say, here I am again, magnificent in a beautiful world. And you'll say, well, Kryon, are you just fooling yourself? It's not a beautiful world. Maybe it is to the one who walks around and creates a beautiful bubble wherever they go. A countenance which is gentle, which allows them to laugh, which has compassion for others wherever they go. That's the beauty of their world, and they're creating it wherever they are. These are the new masters of the planet. And you're going to see more and more of this dark and light. Have you been with friends who are no longer friends? Because all they did was drama. Did you have perhaps a whole decade long of a friendship when all you tried to do was help somebody? But every single time you met with them, the story was the same. The tape was played over and over. And finally you realized it was never going to change because that was the reality that they've chosen to create. And so you dismiss, and you are on your own, creating your own bubble. The difference is this, dear ones, that your bubble is light and is being shared. Wherever you walk, the darkness recedes. This is the new energy. And light is winning over dark, which means that if you have a compassionate consciousness, it's infectious. People are going to want to be around you, to see what you have that others don't. It carries you through life differently. It makes it so that you and your children have a better life and you react differently to them and they see you differently. You at work is different. You with others is different. And we say again, is it just same old, or are you starting to wake up to something that not only is different, it's joyful, magnificent, infectious, desirable? I'll say it again. You will live longer if you laugh. You will live longer. The chemistry will change who you are. The joy factor is the subject. And in this changing energy of today, this is what you are trying to achieve. Tonight, my message is going to be one that is slightly different. We're going to talk about that which is without and within. A new paradigm, literally, of how you meditate, of how you worship, of how you look at Spirit or God, starting to evolve and grow up into who you are and always were. Getting out of the old paradigms of linearity that you saw when you were born. Even in this, which you call the New Age. We sit in a time that is different, and in this area, what you have is beautiful. Meditators. It's why I am here. It is why my partner is in Fairfield. Because the energy that is created with consciousness is palpable. Because it is a sweet and gentle place when there are those with compassion looking to Spirit for guidance. And there are so many of them that the land resounds with it. The crystalline grid remembers it. And even those who simply drive through the city will feel it. You're in the right place at the right time to hear this message. Beauty is coming to this planet in so many different ways. The little pockets will start to grow. Wisdom will start to be seen finally as desirable. The rock throwing that you currently see in your politics eventually will diminish. There will even be wisdom there, unbelievable as it seems. This is where it's going. There will be those who will hear this and read this someday, a long time from now, and will recognize that it really is prophecy. And fulfillment of that prophecy, the potential of it, is in your lap, old soul. Because you're not going to sit and watch it and wait for it. You're going to create it. That's your job. Compassionate action is what we're asking for every day as you walk the planet. And that's enough for now. And so it is. Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. The voice you hear indeed represents the energy of the creative source. That is God to some, spirit to others, whatever you want to call it. We've discussed what the creative source is and what it is not. A benevolent source that knows you. Unbelievable to some that the human being individually would be known by the one or many, the soup, the creation that was responsible for setting the universe in motion. And the reason for this personal touch, you might say, is because in you is part of the Creator. We've told you this before. The system is complete because you are part of God. It's important, especially in this new energy, that you really cognize this and feel this. We go back again to the ancients to see what they would say. For instance, what is the first organized spiritual system on the planet thousands of years ago? What was their first intuition about who humanity was? And the answer is God inside. There are still cultures, many of them, millions of individuals on the planet who would greet you with a namaste, the acknowledgement of my God inside me greets the God in you. God inside is not a foreign concept. Do you realize the connection that is possible here? Dear ones, with the DNA working at the degree it is, the shallowness of all of it, as you progress and as you have an elegance of the divine evolvement which is at hand, the first thing that's going to happen is that connection's going to get better. And the God inside becomes the God outside and inside. But for now, I want you to really, really cognize that you've come into this planet with the Creator inside you. This is reasonable and logical for the test of the planet, for the souls that have to come here and work the issue. There has got to be creation in each of you. If that's the case, I'm going to ask the big question of the evening. When you sit to meditate, when you sit to pray, when you worship, why do you lift your hands and pray to somebody other than the God inside? Humanity is going to have to start understanding in this new energy, the way to the future is not an externalness, it's an internalness. Look at what has happened and what it's become. The God inside from the ancients has become the God outside. You didn't just remove God from your bodies in this society. You made it so humans were useless and worthless and born dirty and had to grovel and crawl even to be noticed by this Creator. It's a disservice. It's a dysfunction to the entire body. When God is inside, the evolution of the human spirit will have a great catalyst, and that will be the belief of starting to activate the internal compass. Your consciousness to this point has always had a lack of self-worth. God inside is a beautiful concept and it didn't stick. And now we start asking you to create something that is going to be understood by you but not practiced by you. A concept that says you leave divine because you were born magnificent. And you were. The first breath you took, the soul that entered your body, all of the planning to get you here creates a magnificence, a beauty that is seen by Spirit and God as beautiful, and yet you don't. And now it is time to start reevaluating what's in there. The internal compass is more than just intuition. It is God inside of every single human being asking to be activated. You still are guilty, are you not, of a bias where even when you meditate, you're looking at an external source. Dear Spirit, I want this. Help me with this. Dear Spirit, I love you. What if you internalized it and called it what it is? In an older energy, we taught you that the best question you could ever ask of God is, tell me what I need to know. And now we're saying the question is the same. But now you're going to start asking God inside. Internalization of this issue means that when you sit to meditate, you honor your body first, because that is where God is in every single piece of DNA. Hundreds of trillions of pieces. God's in all of them. There is a piece of you which is quantum. A very small part of the DNA molecule has been proven to have a quantum attribute. That is just part of what we speak of. There's more than you think in there. If God is inside, you ought to be able to sit down and meditate and start pulling forward that which you need as your internal compass, because you are calling on the source which has always been there. Not the source that sits in the sky, the source that's inside. And to make it easier for you, you might reframe the way you speak or think. And you might start with, Dear Spirit inside, tell me what it is I need to know. Activate my internal compass so that I will be able to sense the direction and not worry. Dear Spirit inside, quench the fear that I have about anything. Dear Spirit inside, show me the peace that passes all understanding, because I'm worried. Dear Spirit inside, I'm afraid. Activate that which I know is inside me so that every single cell can feel what I know is there. I am eternal. Give me the peace, the quietness, and do it now. Has it ever occurred to you that your consciousness can speak to the Creator inside your body? Look at this pathway that you've all but ignored as you search other places. We've said it before, in the scenario of today, somehow you have got to the place where you've eliminated Gaia, you've made God dysfunctional. It's a God who loves you so much you're going to burn in hell if you say the wrong thing. That's not God. Would you do it to your kids? That's not God. Inside you is the whole engine. It's all there. And it's time for you now to take it kick-start it, and see it. Is it possible that every single cell of your body knows what I'm talking about? We've spoken about the field. We've given you two major channels on the benevolence of the field. Some have called it entrainment. There is a field of physics that wants harmony, that puts things together in a synchronous fashion. We've even called it physics with an attitude, because it's not fair, it's not neutral, it's benevolent. And in this new energy, you're going to see this manifest itself every single time you ask it to. This is the wind at your back, finally. This is the help you ask for, finally. And it comes not from the sky, but absolute normal physics. It can be measured. There's a reality in your court that wants to help you activate the internal compass. You wake up at 3:30. I know who's here. And some of you wonder, what'll I worry about now? Because that's the pattern, isn't it? Years and years and years. You assemble the worries and the fears, you make a laundry list, and then you present them to God. How linear of you. What if you woke up at 3 and said, thank you, Spirit, internally for waking me up. Dear God inside, show me why I'm awake. Oh, I see. So you could hold my hand and tell me you love me. So I could go back to sleep and be more peaceful than I ever was. Thank you, God inside. There is no thing too great for the God inside. No matter what you're feeling, no matter what anxiousness you have, no matter what is there that you think may be even permanent, no matter what you're going through, there is a bridge to the God inside that will wipe it away, and the peaceful river of love will flow through you like it never has before. People will see it in you. People experiencing some of the things you have to experience will see it in you because you've mastered it. You discovered where God is. And the irony of it, you've just returned to the past. The ancients knew it all along. And now you're just reawakening some of the most profound knowledge of humanity. It hasn't even been hidden. It's just that you had to get to the place where you wanted to see it, to awaken it. Part of the spiritual awakening in this new energy is awareness of things that are there that you didn't see before. Of you accepting concepts that you never considered before. Of having the thought that perhaps they belong to you instead of to a guru or the channeler. That indeed all of the equipment for everything we're talking about is already in place. And it's been sleeping a long time. Sleeping. The whole idea of awakening something that's been asleep is no more just a metaphor. It is reality. But that's the way it feels. You walk out of the room with a new awareness, but perhaps a new paradigm. Stop looking outside yourself for answers, because they've always been in you. Meditate the same as you always have meditated. But what you're now doing is balancing internally that which will manifest externally in your actions, in your consciousness, in how you treat others, and how you greet the God inside of anyone who comes in your path. We have spoken over and over about compassionate action. We've talked about a change of consciousness that makes your actions different. We said this leads to healthy things. It leads to longer life. This is the evolvement of the new human being. But this is a major hurdle. Listen to the way you meditate and pray. Add the word inside every time you mention Spirit, every time you mention God. Dear God inside, dear Spirit inside. And your body is going to get used to this. It's going to own it. It's going to start understanding you have cognized the divine creator inside yourselves. It's step one to so many things that you have that you didn't think you could do. Now I know who's in the room. I know who's listening. What have you got right now that is so sorrowful or that creates worry and fear? What is it about humanity that lets you project the worst into something worse? And so whatever it is that you fear, then you create a bigger monster. This is the old energy paradigm that will completely and totally be wiped away by dear God inside. Darkness cannot exist when love rules. Hatred cannot be there when joy rules. Sorrow cannot exist when laughter is the king. And this is the teaching of the day, of the year, of the century. You turn the corner, dear God inside, and you join the ancients who knew it from the beginning, for it was intuitive. And then when you have time, and when you want to, I want you to walk outside to where the trees are and the dirt, not the cement, where your feet can touch the dirt. And you can say something that Gaia has wanted to hear for centuries. I want you to say, my God inside says, welcome home. You're going to start collecting energy from the source of Gaia itself, because that is your partner here. You cannot survive without it. We're in a place where there's many farmers. You ask them, they know. Farmers have a tendency to go barefoot when no others would. And you'd say, why would you do that? And they would say, because I want the dirt between my toes. Because I can feel that which is the energy of the dirt, of the divine. And it soothes my soul. It's the step after God inside. No matter where you live, you can do this. You can go where it exists and do this. And I'll tell you, you're going to receive a revelation of energy when you start including Gaia yet again. But dear ones, first is God inside. The externalization of where and how God works converted to the internalization of the reality of how God works is the key. Did you know that when you start that, your biology starts to shift? Did you know that your chemistry will start to shift? Did you know that the benevolence of the field will have a greater impact upon your health? Because suddenly you are allied with things that you never were before. If God is external, how are you ever going to internalize your health. If God is external, how are you ever going to have the peace inside? If God is external, what's it all about? Why do you exist? The logic of this should be clear, because there is no external. You are God. And collectively, your consciousness will change the planet because you are God. There's more. We'll continue at another time. Dear ones, as you sit listening, all of you, I want you to know that this message is so filled with a word that my partner can't conceive of because it doesn't exist. There's no word of how much the Creator is part of you. There's a confluence of love that flows from the other side of the veil directly to you when you cognize and understand and internalize the Creator. As long as we're outside of you, it just sits there. When you bring it in, you're going to live longer. When you bring it in, it starts to be complete. I'm Kryon. I would not tell you these things if they were not so. The new human is beginning to arrive. And so it is. Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. I want to extend the message of last night. It may appear different, but it is the same subject. But even before I start giving any kind of information, I want to identify the channel. It's really not an informational channel. There are times when great things are proposed that you haven't known. They're great because they reflect what the human can do. We talk about systems that maybe you didn't know and things that are happening to you that maybe you didn't know. And other times we just want to sit at your feet and talk to you. And that's all of you. There's great awareness of who listens. There is this multidimensional, timeless thing we talk about over and over that says we know the listener. When you have to suspend the linearity of time and know that Spirit knows the potential of who's going to listen. And then since these things are recorded, you have the specter of being in two places at the same time. You see, I'm talking to the listener no matter when they're listening. And to them, it's now. And yet to you, it's now. And let me ask you, whose now is correct? And the answer is all of you. There are these kinds of things that we look at, especially in energy. There's been lots of questions and answers this day of my partner, of me, for I am with my partner. He started to tell a story and never did of what happened to him 5 years ago. It actually wasn't 5. My partner is more like 8. When he stopped compartmentalizing Kryon. Humanity does this. They look at their relationship with Spirit and they segment it. There's a place to worship, a time to worship, what you wear when you worship, a day to worship. You come and you go, you schedule it. And we've said that before. My partner was doing the same thing. Some of you are doing the same thing. When he sat in the chair, he changed because he had to bring in me. The group that is called the Kryon, that is an energy from the other side of the veil that can communicate with you basically through love. And he had to get ready for it. He actually had to leave the room and come back for it. Many people remember these times. I asked him, is he ready for the next step? He didn't know there was one. He thought he had arrived at the last step. There is no last step. You're always, always going to another one. And he asked what it was, and I said, how would you like to be with that which is your higher self and me? All the time. I can remember his answer. Partly comedic, but there was truth. He said, will it hurt? Partly reality. Will it hurt? And what he meant by that, will it hurt the flow of my life? Can I still be me? As though a magnificent thing would be bad. And then we ask him to try it. It became a meld where no matter where he is or what question he is asked, he delivers the answer from that part of him which is connected to me. In these sessions, some of you can feel it. When he flips between Lee and Kryon. Those who discern can see the light in him change. And this is the invitation, an extension of the last channel we gave you. If God is inside, why do you compartmentalize it? How many of you can meditate while you shop? Some of you feel that in itself is a form of meditation. But the question is this, can you multitask with God? Can you be at work or an assignment or something that you're doing because this is what you do? And at the same time, you're involving the grandness of creation. Do you separate them? To the extent that one does not belong to the other, and then when you're done, then you can have a nice meditation. Have you mastered the art of being awake and meditating and being connected to Spirit, even when you drive, so that it's not dangerous? Did you know that was possible? Some of you know more than it's possible you do it. You don't have to leave your body. You don't have to be someplace that is what they would call non-concentration. That you can multitask. Even accountants be crunching their numbers and at the same time be aware of their divinity. Because it can be 24/7, all the time. Humans have not been built for this. And the reason is because that which you call human nature, your society, your training, your culture, has always segmented everything. A time to eat, time to play, time to work. Time to worship. A time for happiness and sadness. And as this meld begins, all of those things also meld. If you start this process and you understand what I'm saying, the compassionate part of you starts to be involved no matter where you are, no matter what you do. It's almost like an extended worship service where you would pray, meditate, sing, feel the presence of God in everything you do. And you would not be worshiping an entity or even a God. You'd be worshiping the joy that you have. You would be grateful that now you could have something all the time and not just once in a while or not just on the schedule. Kryon, is it possible we can be connected when we sleep? What you don't know is you've always been connected when you sleep. That's part of that multidimensionality of your dreams where they go everywhere. And you can't make any kind of linear sense in so many of them. Your brain disengages. And part of spirit then will be with you in ways it is not when you're awake. Awakeness often creates survival. Awareness of who is there and why they are there and how you can move around and be safe. Can you do that and still be connected to spirit? And the answer is yes, completely, totally. I want you to revisit your own Akash. There were times, dear ones, eons ago, when you really were in survival. You really did carry a spear. You really did have something, perhaps, to live in you wouldn't recognize today. And I want to tell you what the indigenous believe. That God is in everything. In the animal that is about to be sacrificed. In the plants that grow for your nourishment. And every step you take, Gaia is with you. The meld was complete, and that has been lost. And now we rekindle that meld, but in this new energy, it goes far beyond this. It starts to enhance the intuition and synchronicity. Who will you meet and when? I speak to a room full of people. It is there now. And I say to this room filled with people, did you meet somebody you didn't know today? And did you learn anything you didn't know from them? Did you recognize them? Not as former family members, not as profound Akashic things, but as member of a soul group called the Creative Source. Could you see you in them? Could you relate? Could you be empathetic to the point where you could join them often and know that you'd be safe and fine? Synchronicity works this way. You're pulled together from places that are very different. For commonality, you have come to the room to hear the channeling, to enjoy the energy, to be with others of like mind. And now let's add the last one, to always expect. Synchronicity with people you don't know. There are those who had answers for you today if you took the time to meet them. The situations and issues that you've asked about and wondered about. Synchronicity is the new key. Intuition will push and pull you, not karma, to come to these kinds of meetings and other areas where you will meet those who are there to meet you. And how are you going to enhance that? How do you know where to go? And the answer is the meld. The last channeling asks you to stop looking for an exterior God and start looking inward to an interior God, so that your meditations would begin differently. Dear Spirit, inside. Dear God, inside. And when you say those things out loud, the very cells of your body celebrate the fact that you know it. It's almost like they're saying, they're awake. They know about us. Finally, the integration begins. The meld is the invitation. To carry around that part of you which is divine, that you feel is God, whatever that is, to carry it into the most unlikely places, what you do, where you go. As you drive, as you walk, as you shop, as you eat, as you talk. And dear ones, when you do that, things change. You're healthier. Did you know that? You can't segment and remove spirit from your cellular structure and only visit it when you want to and expect balance in your cells. Your cells crave this. The balance of bodies crave this. The missing piece, the element that's always been something that has been mysterious and people have asked about over and over. How can I this? How can I that? Your name goes here. How can I go this? What's next? You're not melded yet, or you wouldn't ask. The melded human being is one who is super intuitive and don't even know it. They just know what they should do, where they should go, and what's next. That's the meld that we speak of. This creates the new human who is starting to appreciate and understand that spirituality is not removed from the corporeal human being, the corporeal human being. Can you do this in a corporate structure? Can you go to work? Can you go to committee meetings? Can you meet the boss and have God inside? Now, some people say, no. I've got to leave spirit at the door when I go into the office. As though spirit was not there. I hear this all the time from humanity. And they would say, you have no idea what I have to go through. As though we weren't there. Next to you the whole time. Even in your statements in meditation, you don't know we're there. You've isolated and compartmentalized yourself so much that you have to try to explain to spirit in your meditations what you need, as though we were never there. The one who melds, don't get this wrong, the one who melds may find themselves meditating less because they have changed the nomenclature of meditation. 24/7 meditation, always connected no matter what you're doing, always meditating because you have God inside, always thinking like a meditator because you have God inside. No more isolation. No more scheduling a meeting with God in a place where you know God is. Instead, you know where God is inside you. 24-hour meditation with your eyes open, going to work. Is this really possible? Now, those who are meditation specialists are a little nervous with this message. Because the old paradigm says there must be a dedicated concentration in order to achieve a certain state of esotericness. And I would like to tell you something. They're right in an older energy. They're right in an older energy. And the proof of this is what meditation creates in your body. It creates healthiness. It creates longer living. It creates that which is less anxious. It actually spreads into the ground around you. They're right. And now we're saying it's changing. A meld creates a different kind of meditation, but the results are the same. You won't be meditating as much in the way you used to. Instead, you will be meditating every second of your existence. Everywhere you concentrate and look, you will see God there. You will think about spiritualness not in the same way. You won't be concentrating on some elusive thing and trying to bring it to you, because it's already there. And instead, you will readjust how you look at everything. How you look at a tree or chair or wood. How it's connected in some way to you. You will look at your own soul differently. You will start to understand you're eternal. That even after that part, which others call your passing, you're still here. Because you will be biological and you'll continue the journey you have before, you will again. You start to see your own life differently. The fears that were drummed into you will start to leave. You'll understand that you can have empathy for the planet, but it doesn't have to control your emotions. You can see injustice, and it doesn't have to make you sob and cry and not sleep. Instead, you can see that, and you can send energy to that part of it that needs energy because of the God inside. You're meditating. You don't have to become part of the problem to work with the problem. You have to be in that mode that says all things that are happening are here and happening, and what I am is the catalyst to compassion around them. I can put them in a bubble of love, and the result will be that others will feel it. And that eventually those things will morph and change. And then when you have enough doing it together, what a difference. It's all changing. Who am I really speaking to here? The old soul. The one who would want to meditate at all. Who recognizes the power of it, the appropriateness of it, the majesty of it. And the message is clear. God inside. The meld is here. Change the very definition of meditation. Because now it is really getting powerful. Because you are the source. Instead of visiting it, concentrating on it, and using it, you become it. That's power. It's all part of this message that we gave last night. Getting rid of the exterior and bringing it inside. The message is about energy. Who are you really? Lastly, who are you really? Old soul, the very thing that would bring you to the room. Meditator, listen, the very thing that would bring you to meditate is God inside. Who are you? An old soul on the planet will say, well, I've been here a very, very long time. I've lived a lot of lives. Let's go beyond that. Who are you? Let's talk to the one who's listening right now, who's a first-timer, who is not an old soul. Who are you? Let me take you on a trip. At a level that is beyond the soul. When you join other souls and you're not here, you become part of an amalgamated energy, a soul group that has no singularity or identity that is linear. You are part of the soup of creation, the energy of the universe, looking at the galaxy. That's who you are. That means you were here when the earth was created. What if I told you that every single one of you, in whatever form you can imagine, was standing there at the very creative event when the universe was put together, the galaxy started its journey, where time meant nothing, and the clock didn't tick, and the idea of ancient was not even in the language of God. It just was. And you saw the collision of objects. You saw the earth created. You saw the moon created. And the whole time you knew the Pleiadians were coming. That group of ascended beings from far away, who also had God inside, just like you do. Almost like your spiritual parents, not space people, but spiritual people. People, not aliens, people, who would eventually come here and seed you in a way that would be magnificent to bring you to this place where the shift is happening, where my partner could sit here, where channeling is being listened to. You were there when the earth was created. You were there when the galaxy started spinning. You got to see the pair in the middle of the spinning galaxy, not the singularity, not a black hole, but the push-pull of the energy that no one has discovered yet and will. You know how physics works. You knew that someday you'd start your journey here. That's who you are. That goes apart from humans, doesn't it? Now we're talking about the essence of you. You're forever. And when you meld, I promise that one of the things that's going to happen is that the longer you live, the more you'll be aware that death itself is a paper tiger. It's a transition, and all it does is create sorrow for those you left behind. That's all it does. It doesn't take you to a bad place. It takes you to a good place. You go home. And all that happens next is that you come back. The worst thing about death is not dying. It's those who are left behind and how they treat it. And how you can prepare them to treat it. If you can cognize this with them too, they'll have a celebration. They'll celebrate you in your next incarnation. They'll celebrate all that you did while you were here. They will celebrate you into the beyond. And there will be tears of joy that you're eternal like they are. What a concept. A new kind of funeral. And it's coming. You're going to see it. This is an accelerated consciousness, ways of thinking that are very different. And they're going to become common because universal truth is that way. I want to remind you in closing, there was a time on this planet when there were many gods. And it wasn't that long ago. Even when you're talking about 3,000 to 4,000 years, which is nothing, there were multiple gods and arguments about which one is correct and real. Most of them were dysfunctional. And then something happened at the right time, in the right place. The earth got the news and accepted it almost universally over a small amount of time. Monotheism. One God for the planet. Today, there is one God for the planet. That is a consciousness shift. And so when we tell you there's going to come a time when you understand more about the way things work spiritually, even death and life, you're going to say, I don't think so. Well, I want you to readjust your thinking based upon what happened in the past. The earth shifted its whole focus because the truth spoke for itself. There is one God. And there'll be also the agreement that there's also one system of one God. And that one system is that humans have a soul that is eternal. And the eternalness of it is not something that goes to another place. It returns and celebrates its existence and improves the planet every time it comes. A beautiful system of soul return. And that will then be common on the planet, just like monotheism became common on the planet. It's coming. It will not then cancel or make systems wrong, which you call spiritual. They will simply adjust, and you've seen it before. They will adjust and still be as magnificent. Not everyone will then have to change their spirituality. It simply will be a new truth that finds itself in its appropriate way into the systems you call organized religion. Things will get better because of this. You're so singular. So many of you listening now still believe that there's come a time when the earth is going to be a utopia, and all spirituality will be seen as the same, and there will be no dissension. You will have free choice forever. And the free choice will create a variety of opinion. But today, if you ask somebody about monotheism, you'll say, of course, there's one God. The dissension is how to worship the one God. That will then go away. And the realization that the oneness is for everyone, and there is no right or wrong, there's just love. That will morph into something else, which will morph into something else, if you connect and meld. Dear ones, in closing, I will say this: you are at the cusp of new paradigm shift that is spiritual. And that part of what old souls know will work is this meld that I'm talking about. Creating something that is with you all the time, 24/7. Awake in the morning and celebrate your existence as you put your feet on the floor. When you go to sleep at night, before you swing your feet onto the bed, celebrate the fact that God is inside and you're never alone. And that death will never have a sting that you've been taught it would. I want you to think of your demise, which will always happen. Think of your demise, which will always happen, and smile. Can you do it? Because you're coming right back. And you continue, and you continue, and you continue. It's simply a transition. That's all it is. Call it a transition of love. Because that's what it feels like. You'll see. You've done it before. How many of you have Akashic remembrance of passing over the veil? And you might say, well, I don't really remember that, Kryon. Oh, you will. And when you do, a whole nother awareness will be yours. This is the beauty of what's happening here, slowly. There'll come a time when these channels will be listened to yet again, in whatever format is available at that time. And you'll say, all of this has happened. The fun part is that you'll be there. so will I. And so it is.